Hi everyone, hope you guys are doing well. This is James from Divine Crochet. Welcome to my channel. For today's video, I wanted to share a very highly requested video, which is a tutorial on how I make my distressed mesh jumper using a repeat pattern. My most popular pattern is my distressed mesh jumper, which a lot of you really loved but found it quite hard to recreate because it's a freehand project. This means there's no set pattern, I just kind of gave you a guide as to what to do, and I didn't realize how many of you guys do not love to freehand crochet. I would say unless you have experience freehanding smaller projects, doing a jumper like this can be quite challenging, so I wanted to make it a priority that before the end of this year I came up with a repeat pattern for this jumper. This just means that more of you guys are able to make your own version, just because I do want to make my patterns as accessible to you guys as possible. But after a few months of trial and error, I came up with a repeat pattern that I really like, and it's a 1-row repeat pattern, so it's actually quite easy to learn. So the first part of this video is going to be about the stitch itself and kind of how to use it, and obviously I'll teach you guys what stitches I use and how to work up a panel. And then the second half is going to be how I created a jumper using this stitch, which is a very beginner friendly jumper, but I wanted to show you how to use the stitches kind of in practice. To demonstrate this stitch, I'm going to be using double knit yarn and a 5mm hook. My experience is this kind of stitch looks better when you go around 1mm up in the size of the hook that you use compared to the recommended size on your yarn. But by any means you can use any hook size, any yarn size, that's just kind of my aesthetic preference, but you go ahead and get whatever you want, and we'll get into learning how to do the stitch.
Right, so to start off this panel, we're going to start with a slip knot, put that around our hook and tighten it, and we're going to start with a chain length of a multiple of 10 plus 4. So for this practice panel, I'm going to go ahead and chain a total of 24, and 3 of those are going to be a turning chain for our next row. So effectively, I'm going to be building up 21 stitches that I'll be working in my rows to come. But as I say, just pick a multiple of 10 plus 4. That's going to be how many we chain to start off this repeat. Once you reach your final chain stitch, you're going to skip 5 stitches, and into your 6th stitch, you're going to work a double crochet. So I'm going to be working into the back bump of the chain row, but you just go ahead and work into where you feel most comfortable. And then after you have completed this, you should have this little box. This counts as a double crochet, a chain 1 and a double crochet. We are then going to get our loop and stretch it to the length of 2 chains. If you're familiar with my channel, I call these extended chains because you're effectively just doing a chain but making it longer than usual. I'm showing you here the length of 2 of my chains is about this length. So instead of doing 2 chains, I will just stretch 1 of my chains into the length of 2 chains. We can now skip 2 of the chains below us, and into the 3rd chain we're going to work a double crochet. And again, that's going to be into the back bump for me, but that might be a different case for you. And the next stitch is kind of like a mix between a double crochet and Tunisian crochet. So we're going to start off with a double crochet, or the action of a double crochet, but into the next available stitch, I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2, and then your final yarn over and pull through 2, and then you want to go ahead and chain 1, and then into the next 2 available stitches we're going to repeat this stitch. So start off with the action of double crochet, insert your hook into the next available loop, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through 3 times just like you would in a triple crochet. And then what we're going to do is enter a double crochet into the 2nd chain that you entered, or like the most recent chain that you entered, and that is going to be our 10 stitch repeat. So obviously I'm going to go ahead and show you this a few more times, but that's the general gist. So remember that turning chain was a chain 3. That's to emulate a double crochet and a chain 1. So in the next available chain, we're going to do a double crochet, and as I say, that's kind of resembling that turning chain, and then we're chaining one before then skipping a stitch and entering a double crochet. So that should be kind of mirroring the box that we made at the start. We're then going to do an extended chain to the length of 2 chains, skip 2 chains in the chain length and into the third chain. That's where we're going to work our double crochet. Now it's time for us to work in those Tunisian double crochets. So we're going to start off with the action of a double crochet, insert our hook into the next available stitch and pull up a loop, then yarn over, pull through to a total of 3 times. And the first time you do this, you're going to end it with a chain, and your next 2 stitches that you enter should be the 2 free ones available. So again, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop in the next chain as well. I'm having some troubles here. I must have made my initial chains quite tight, but we're going to pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through to a total of 3 times. But this time we're not going to end with a chain. We're going to yarn over and do a double crochet into the last chain that we entered in that Tunisian double crochet thing, and you will be done with 2 of your repeats. But to finish off our row, we're going to finish with a double crochet in the final stitch, and that is going to be your first row done. So I'm going to show you how to do the second row, because obviously you won't be just working into chain stitches. Anytime you start a new row from now on, this is going to be the pattern that you want to use. So we're going to start off with a turning chain of 3, and this counts as a double crochet and a chain 1. So we're going to skip the double crochet below, and if you remember the Tunisian double crochet that we did, that's going to be where we enter our first double crochet. Then once we've done that, we're going to do our extended chain, skip 2 stitches in the row below, which is this chain and this Tunisian double crochet, and we're going to enter normal double crochet into the normal double crochet. So we're stacking these on top of each other. Now I'm going to yarn over, enter my hook first just around this yarn right at the top, and my second one I'm going to put it under 2 of the pieces of yarn. So I'm entering my hook through 2 different points in this extended chain. Then we can yarn over and pull through to a total of 3 times before then chaining 1. And at this point, if you remember, we're ready to do another one of those Tunisian double crochets, entering our hook into the double crochet and the chain stitch. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, do that one more time, and then enter a normal double crochet into the chain stitch, and this is your 10 stitch repeat. So we're going to finish off this repeat / start our next repeat with a normal double crochet, and this is kind of what it's going to start to look like. Everything's going to look a little bit uneven, but the more rows you add, the clearer the pattern will become. So we're going to chain 1, skip 1, double crochet, and again this is the same pattern that we used in the row below. Then we're going to do our extended chain, skip 2, work our double crochet here, and then our Tunisian double crochet. Again, I'm going to start by entering my hook below 1 loop, then enter my hook beneath 2 loops before then completing the action of doing a triple crochet ending with a chain. And now we have to do our final stitches into the turning chain. So put 1 loop in that double crochet and then pull up a loop through the next available chain next to it. This is going to kind of be what we counted as our chain at the start of our first row. So we're going to complete the action of that Tunisian double crochet before then working a double crochet into the first chain that is closest to the double crochet that we've already worked into. And then in the next available chain, that's where we're going to be putting our final double crochet. And that is the basics when it comes to this distressed repeat stitch. So I'm going to do another row at kind of a more human pace, just so you guys can kind of get used to the rhythm of this stitch. So start by chaining 3, yarn over, and we're going to go ahead and do our double crochet, skipping 1 stitch, and do an extended chain, skip 2 stitches, and work in a double crochet. At this point, your next stitch that's available should be that extended double crochet, which is going to be where we put our first Tunisian double crochet. As I say, just make sure you enter 2 different spots, then chain 1, then repeat the pattern of doing that Tunisian double crochet, but this time we're not going to end it with a chain. We're going to end it with a double crochet into the second stitch that we pulled up a loop from, before then starting our pattern repeat with a double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, and work in a double crochet, before we then do our extended chain, double crochet. As I say, make sure we skip 2 when we do those extended chains, and then we're going to do our first Tunisian double crochet into the extended chain. Again, make sure you enter your hook into 2 different parts of the stitch and end this one with a chain. Then you want to repeat the same stitch but pulling up a loop from a double crochet and a chain stitch. Because I tend to work into the front and back loop when I work into the chain, sometimes it's a little bit hard for me to work into the chain, but it does look neat like this. Remember, with this second repeat of the Tunisian double crochet, we don't chain 1, we do a double crochet into the second stitch that we pulled up a loop from, and then into the next available stitch we're going to do a double crochet. So this should be into the second chain of the chain 3 that we did as our turning chain, and from then on we're just going to repeat this. Hopefully by now you kind of get a gist of what to do. If you need to go back and re-watch this again just to get the hang of this, then go ahead and do that.
Now I've gone through how to crochet this distressed mesh stitch, we can go on into how to actually construct and make a distressed mesh jumper. So we'll get on with that.
For this jumper, I'm going to use some 4-ply cotton from Yeoman Yarns, as well as a 4mm hook. And what I'm going to do is start by chaining the width of how wide I want my front and back panel to be. So for me, I decided to do a total of 64 chains. So remember, this needs to be a multiple of 10 plus 4, and once I reach the 64th chain, I'm going to skip 5 chains and work my first double crochet into the 6th stitch. And what this will do is recreate the pattern of double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. So then we need to do our extended chain, skip 2 stitches in the row below, and work a double crochet into the 3rd stitch. And then once you've completed that double crochet, we can yarn over, pull up a loop like we would with the double crochet, pull up another loop, and complete that Tunisian double crochet. Then from here you want to yarn over and pull through 2-3 times, do a chain, and then into the next 2 free chains, or free available, not free as in 3. It's really hard to say that with my accent, but we're going to go ahead and do that Tunisian double crochet again, this time not ending with a chain, ending with a double crochet into the last stitch that we entered. And as you can see, it's a little bit harder to see with this finer black yarn. That's why I wanted to do my demonstration in a slightly easier colour to see. So we're starting off our second round of repeats with double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet, extended chain, skip 2, and then from here we're just going to go ahead and repeat the pattern up until we reach the final stitch in our chain row, and our final stitch should be our second just normal double crochet, which would be the start of another repeat if we have more stitches to work into. I'm showing you here. We can make sure that we're doing all of our stitches right, because it clusters in stitches of 1, 2 and 3, so that's kind of how you can check that you're doing these stitches right. And then from here, to start our new row, remember we're going to chain 3, turn our work, skip the next available stitch and work in a double crochet, and this will emulate the pattern that we've got going of doing a double crochet, then chaining 1 and skipping 1, and then doing a double crochet. and I'm not going to spend any more time really going through this stitch just because I've spent so long going through it. I don't want to just repeat what I've said over and over again, but hopefully at this point you guys are very familiar with what we're doing. But basically, I'm not going to add any increases or decreases. This fabric is actually quite stretchy, so I'm very comfortable to just work in the dimensions of rectangles. So I'm just going to go ahead and build this panel up till I get the height that I want. And what I do to check that I'm done is I hold this panel up to my body just to check its size. And then once I'm happy with it, I'm going to leave a long end just for sewing later and pull that through to finish off my panel. So to make a jumper, we're going to need a front and back panel, so I need to make a duplicate panel, the exact same size, the exact same rows, and then I'm going to do 2 arm panels where the chain length that I start off with is equivalent to the circumference around the top of your arm, making sure that you've got some kind of wiggle room. Right, so now is my least favourite part of any project, which is sewing it all together. So I'm taking some stitch markers and attaching the top of each corner of both of my front and back panels. This is just going to be a process of me sort of pinning things together to work out where I want to place everything. So once I've got either side pinned, I'm going to decide where I want my neckline to be. So I want quite a wide neckline, so I've left myself quite a lot of room. And then it's just going to be a case of pinning in your arm panels, making sure they're spaced equally. You just want to attach the middle stitch of your arm panel to where you attached the front and back panel, and then equally space each corner of the arm panel either side, making sure you're working down the same amount of rows each side. Once you've done the same to the other side, making sure it's all symmetrical, you can drape this over yourself and just check that the placement of everything is right to fit your body or whoever you're making this for. And then we can go ahead and start actually sewing things together. I'm going to start by sewing either side of the collar together, just because in my head this makes more sense. So I am just kind of picking up a loop or two either side of the stitches, making sure everything lines up quite nicely. And what I wanted to show you is these extended chains. I ended up leaving the chain row at the bottom, so when it comes to sewing on the neckline, I'm going to have to treat each one of these extended chains as 2 stitches and not 1. This will just help everything be nicely lined up, because obviously both of the sides that you're sewing together are the top of rows, so you should be able to sew it together stitch by stitch. This should also mean that your collar is symmetrical. So I just work my way down to the stitch marker, and then once I reach that, I go ahead and try and stretch out my fabric to make sure the seam isn't too tight or too loose. And then once I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and tie the knot. Now when it comes to sewing the sleeves onto this panel, what I'm going to do is use stitch markers to pin together everything as evenly as I can. So I'm trying to find halfway points between where I've put these stitch markers, and this just means that because there's no guide to follow, because I'm attaching the top of a row to the side of a row, it means I can kind of space things out a little bit easier. Now you can fold your jumper in half and do your side seam, which is going to be quite an easy thing to put together just because we're working up 2 sides of the panel. So you just want to be putting 2 stitches into each one of your rows. For me it's quite easy to see where these rows meet, but if you want to, you can use the same method as we did before and use stitch markers to mark together where rows kind of match up. A lot of this is just going to be you looking at your project and counting rows and making sure everything looks symmetrical. And then once you've done all of your sewing, your jumper is done. And all I've got now left to do is to sew in my ends.
That's going to be it from me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you guys did enjoy this video, please let me know in the comments below, because I actually am thinking about making this a little bit of a series where I want to come up with a few different distressed repeat patterns, because I actually really enjoyed this process. I was thinking I could do a distressed stitch that's a little bit more opaque and a little bit warmer to wear, and I also want to come up with a more complex X distress stitch, because whilst this stitch is really cool, it's because of the one row repeat, you can definitely see from afar that it is a repeat pattern, and I want something that's a little bit more intricate and kind of sporadic. So if you guys are interested in that, please let me know. I've obviously got a bunch of other tutorials on this channel that you're more than welcome to go through. I also have other social medias if you guys are interested, which I'll link down below. I also have patterns that I sell on Etsy, and I just recently came out with this tie pattern, which I think is really cool, and I've had a lot of positive feedback on, so definitely go check that out. Apart from that, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.